Good afternoon, Guild of New Hampshire Woodworkers. It's kind of strange to be doing it this way, but I can imagine seeing all your faces there, and it's nice to be kind of with the home team for a change, doing one of these Guild connections. But, you know, being on the stream like this has some of its advantages because I've got all this stuff right in the shop. I can move around. I didn't have to schlep all this stuff and can do more in a way. But also the advantage is that I know how it is after lunch doing this type of presentation to the Guild group, and I can live with the illusion that no one is going to be nodding off because I can't see your faces or you're dropping chins. But
never happens.
That never happens. Never.
Not to us either, to our personal experience.
Never.
Never.
No, I remember early in our marriage with Chris, we got some tickets to the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and it was so amazing. I'd never been there. It was a Sunday afternoon, you know, right around this time, you know, like 1 or 2, and we got there a little late. And I didn't get to look at the play. Well, just before it started, our seats were up near the front, and so we're sitting there. And I was just dying to know what this whole symphony hall looked like behind me, because we came in like a side, and during some concerto, you know, all like lovely little music going, I slowly turned my head around and looked behind us to this vast hall, and all I see are these row upon row of faces of guys mostly, I guess.
Expensive nap.
Like, yeah, and I just thought, hey, that's the way they want to enjoy it. That's fine. So if that's how you guys want to enjoy this, that's fine with me too.
They're telling me there's about 50 people there, so that's great.
Oh, awesome.
Wow.
Great.
It's awesome, guys. Wish we could see you all, but
Yeah. All right. So this afternoon, I wanted to go along with something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. And if you've seen any of my Shop Night Lives, probably about a month or 2 ago, I talked about the Queen Anne leg. I hadn't visited this for a while. This is really what I was trained on with Pug Moore down in North Carolina. We did a lot of 18th century furniture, so it was a lot of Queen Anne and Chippendale primarily, some Federal furniture as well. So I love going back to this style. It brings back a lot of memories, but it also helps me revisit the source of some beautiful design throughout history. And when I first started working in this kind of traditional 18th century work, I remember being in that shop, and I loved being in there, but I thought this furniture is like old-fashioned, like fuddy-duddy, but that soon fell away. You know, I had this itch to like create my own and be this contemporary master. But I grew such an appreciation for the 18th century design because it encapsulates so much of what makes any kind of design work. It's all about, you know, the use of materials, the integrity of the joinery, and the beauty of the composition of the piece overall, but then the way the individual elements related to the whole. It's all there, and it doesn't matter whether it was classical type furniture, or if you do draw the analogy to music, if it was classical music as compared to contemporary music, you know, all kinds of similar thoughts in the structure and composition to what makes great furniture design. So I love going back there, and I hope if you see my recent Shop Night Live, I apologize. This will be some overlap, but I'm actually doing a different leg. So you probably won't be totally bored. And you can always pretend you're at the symphony orchestra if that's the case. All right. Anyway, I wanted to start by introducing the leg we'll be making. Thinking of doing this. This is a hall table design that I did some years ago in the Queen Anne style. And I really like it. It's very useful. It could be a hall table, or it we use it as almost like a little sideboard table in our dining room. It sits aside our dining table and has some big candles on it. It's pretty sweet. And it takes up a nice little space on the wall. And this one, just for the size, in case you're wondering, it's 28 inches tall, which also works behind a sofa. You know, you could use it that way as well. And it's 46 inches long and 16 inches deep. So, but this has that classical Queen Anne style leg. And, you know, drawing the analogy of music, it is kind of interesting that the Queen Anne style, or that cabriole leg, actually looks almost like a note on a page. And it does strike a chord with me. Sorry, yuck. All right, so anyway, this shape, this cabriole shape, was popularized in that period. I mean, it was earlier than the Queen Anne period, but it was in some Egyptian style furniture because it was actually drawn from a goat's leg, like the back leg, that kind of shape with the knee and then the foot coming back forward like that. So that cyma curve is very reminiscent of an animal's leg. So the cabriole comes from that. But the way it finishes at the foot varied. So with the Queen Anne, you quite often saw the foot come down to a spoon foot in this fashion here. But later on in the Chippendale style, I should have grabbed one, but I've got a cabriole leg that has a ball and claw at the foot. And so they're both cabriole legs, but this is more of the style that you would see in the Queen Anne period. Now this is a leg from a Queen Anne high boy pattern that I made actually when I was with Pug. And this is very reminiscent of the style of Queen Anne foot that he would make. He had a little turned foot here with a round over at the bottom, but it really does set the tone for a nice structure. It gives it kind of a sound base, but it has this decorative feeling. I don't know why it works so well, but it just does. I'm going to show you a few different legs. Here's a small leg. This is from a chair design, and it's a small version of the Queen Anne style. And this is similar to the one we did on Shop Night Live. If you're interested, you missed that, we do have that uploaded on our Epic Woodworking YouTube channel. You can check it out. Here's one that is actually from Pugmore's shop. I don't know that if he made this one, but I have a set of 4 of these that he gave me, and this is in walnut, and it's for a tea table. And so all the legs are done, and the shell is carved on the knee, which is quite beautiful. And this was kind of typical of American Queen Anne. It was a little more discreet, not as ornate, but when you saw a shell on the knee like this was more of a transition, like it was moving into the more decorative and elaborate Chippendale period. So this is kind of that bridge, what else do they call that? I forget the term. But anyway, I'll think of it. So you've got that transition piece. That's what. And this is the leg that is the pattern for our hall table that I just showed you. So I want to make one of these legs with you here today and go through the process and then talk a little bit about how the same process is useful in thinking about making and designing your own contemporary legs. We won't have a lot of time for that, but we'll throw that in at the end because I do like in talking about that as well. So there you go. We're going to go along with this style. So we're going to make it in this way where the foot is actually turned. So that bottom foot is spun on the lathe, and then the rest of it is sawn. Now sometimes these Queen Anne legs can be made completely on the lathe, with an offset turning style where you turn the foot toward the front and then you turn with a secondary center back on the heel that turns the axis of the leg. And then you have to blend the ankle a little bit, but they aren't as, I don't think they have as much of a sweet look because you do have this kind of straight cylinder shape in this area. But here we've got this flowing kind of S-curve, which we want to exaggerate or emphasize in this piece. All right, so that's the turn foot. Now there's a great article, early article, in Fine Woodworking magazine, number 42, and the great Phil Lowe is on the front, and I think this was one of his first articles ever in the magazine. And coming from North Bennett, he shared the technique that they taught at North Bennett, one of the techniques for making a Queen Anne leg. So here he's working on a leg much the same size as this one, which is for a chair. So my guess is that's some type of chair leg. And this is an interesting article because in it, he doesn't demonstrate the style where you turn the foot. He actually shapes the entire foot by hand. So I don't know if you can see this, but he's rasping and shaping the round on the bottom. So he actually comes to the underside of his blank, and this is not really finding the center. Let's just do an imaginary center here. And he scribes the circle of the overall foot, and then he comes in smaller for the pad and just works away that thing with hand tools to create that beautiful kind of flowing spoon foot. But that takes significantly more time. And later on, I've heard, and probably some of you guys who had the pleasure of studying with him know that he made them all kinds of ways. And he did also demonstrate the turn foot. And that's what I want to show you this morning. This afternoon, this leg with a turn foot offset. So the first thing you need to do is have a good pattern. And I've got a couple patterns here. This is the original pattern that I have used for this. So the pattern has kind of the shape of the leg coming down into the ankle and then the foot. And on the other side, you can see up at the top. Yeah, right up here.
Sorry.
That's okay. On the other side, you can see the mortise layout. So typically, because there's such a curve, and once you saw this curve, you lose a lot of times a really solid reference surface. You might lose a straight. Here you don't totally lose a straight, but it's to your advantage to lay out the leg and cut the mortises first, then saw out your leg, and you'll have a really nice result. So this is the initial pattern of this leg. Now, a couple things to note on the template. Notice how relatively straight the leg is through this section, and how pretty soft the curve is at the bottom. It's not that dramatic. It doesn't look as dramatic as that, does it? I mean, when you look at it, and the reason is that your template is in 2 dimensions. So you're looking at the template just from like the front view, but the template gets cut to the front and then on the side, and so it's the combination of those 2 saw cuts that creates this 3-dimensional figure. And so when you go from a flat perspective to the side, from the side to the front, you actually, once it becomes 3-dimensional, those curves are actually multiplied by about the factor of 1.4, almost 1.5 the strength of the curved line that you drew is magnified on the diagonal. So you almost have to keep that in mind when you're drawing your leg, that you don't overdo it And there are some general rules about how to go about this. And those general rules, this square on this Queen Anne chair is 2 3/4. That was quite common for chairs, and for this table as well, I used the same. So it's 2 3/4. It gives you a lot of material. You need a decent sized block up here, and then you come out with the knee, and the knee comes out about 7/8 or so, or almost an inch, and then but the knee comes all the way out to the full square. So this is the full 2 3/4 dimension out to the knee. And then it falls off at kind of a steep angle here. So your knee shouldn't jut out like a shelf. It should fall off almost, I mean, this is almost at a 30-degree angle, but it drops softly, and then we have the apex of the knee right here. And then right from about this point, it almost goes in a straight line right down to the foot. You don't want a big inward curve here. If you do, you're going to have that magnified when you get to the 3-dimension. And then when you get down here, it sweeps out. And the same thing in the back. You have a in cut, and then it drops almost straight right down to the back of the block here. So this template was just made from 2 3/4 square wide material and the same height as the leg. And here's a blank of a leg that you can see right here. So this would lay on this stock, and you could register the block, and you can see exactly how that was laid out. That knee is right out to the edge, and the back heel comes here. So that's basically how you're going to trace it out. These lines are fairly straight down into there, but when they're sawn out, you're going to get some curvature. Now this is funny because when I first made my first Queen Anne chairs, I was kind of on my own a little bit. I mean, I had Pug to lean on, but this was after my 3 years apprenticing with him, and I was like 20 miles or 20 minutes down the road, and I had probably patterns from him to use, and I remember thinking, man, this pattern just isn't strong enough. It's not that good Queen Anne look. So I added some curvature to it, just what I was saying. Totally thinking I knew better, right? And so I got it all sawn out, and I made that first chair. And do you know, I have that here to show you, because I want to show you an example of this exaggerated curve. So let me show you this chair right here. This is one of my first Queen Anne chairs. And this is where the dog chewed. Crazy golden retriever. Yeah. Gone now, but not our fond memories.
Not because she chewed on a chair.
No, the carved little volute, she chewed right into that. That was especially tasty. But here we've got the ankle, and look at this. It comes down, and this has a quite exaggerated curve, really more than, now you're looking at it from the front view, right? Now let's look at it from the diagonal. So it's overdoing it. In fact, the grain is coming down like this, so you kind of kick the ankle back, and so you've got relatively short grain in here. You do have some long grain that's carrying up here, but it's also for the strength of the leg. You don't want to overdo it. But it's more for the aesthetics as well. I remember I had some guys over the shop once, and we had a little gathering out there, and I brought these chairs out so we could sit around. And one of the guys, I don't mean this in a mean way, but he was huge. He was at least 350, probably more than that, close to 4. And we were standing around, and then we were going to take a seat, and I was like, oh no, don't sit in that chair. I was like, please don't sit in that chair. And because I didn't want an embarrassing moment to happen. I was afraid of that ankle. It was too steep. And do you know, he sat right in this chair, and I couldn't concentrate on what was going on the whole night because he was like sitting forward. But you know, nothing happened, obviously. So they are tremendously strong. Don't underestimate the strength. But the curvature was too much. Here's what I exaggerated, and I kind of blew it. This is more the true curve this is the softer curve of not overdoing it. So you have the front view and you can see it's not as exaggerated, and then the side view looks a little more pronounced. So here, I don't know if you can see both legs together. Does it show up there? Like how different they are? This one has this big sweep, a bit too much. So that's just a word to the wise when thinking about how to mark your curves. So you don't want to overdo that when you're laying it out. All right, so let's come on back to the bench, and we're going to work on this. Now, a lot of times when people make these, you really have two options to go. When you turn your foot, you can center it in the block, or you can slightly register it toward the toe. I prefer to register toward the toe because you get a little more outward sweep, especially on taller legs. Because they're so long, you have like this long stretched out leg here, and if it just has this little subtle curve to the center, it doesn't work as well. But I'm going to do this kind of as an experiment today too, because I've got, we'll see if it makes any difference. Because this leg here, I believe, this one was made to the center of the leg, and it looks fine. But I want to try to sweep it out just a little further. So this is the template for this leg. So you can see it's centered in the 2 3/4 square. There's the center line. Now the leg, the foot is a 1/4 inch smaller than the overall dimension. If you leave it the full dimension, it just looks clunky down there, and it doesn't give you as much to sweep forward with this ankle coming forward. So this is in the 2 dimension, remember. In the at 45-degree angle, you're going to have more of a sweep from that back heel, from the back corner out to the front. Here, I redid the template, and I'm going to sweep it a little more forward. So now I've got this reduction in diameter of that foot, that 1/4 inch. I'm putting it all at the back. So I justified it toward the front. So the center line is now 1 1/4 inches from the front. All right, so let's lay this out on our blank and knock out a leg. All right, so we've got this. We've got to decide how to orient this. I've got a little sap here, but most of that should come off because it's on the corner back here. And this is just for demonstration anyway, but maybe I'll use it, who knows. And I've got a knot up here. So I decided I'll make this the front right here. I don't know if you can see those front marks. I'll use chalk so we can see better. So that's my front. So those are my 2 front faces. And then if we remember, our mortises are going to be right here. So
Cherry, right, Tom?
yeah, this is cherry. Yep. So we would lay out our mortises once we've described our front. We would lay this out, and I would mark here, here, and I'd go ahead and square those lines across, and then come in about the distance, and I would scribble here. We'd have these lines here, and we go ahead and cut those on the Hall chisel mortiser. So this would flip, it would mirror over here. You'd have the same mortises on this side here.
Can you talk about what wood would have been the most commonly used in that period?
They used a lot of mahogany, and here in America it was different. A lot of cherry, mahogany, walnut. But the big ones in North Carolina were mahogany and walnut. So, you know, you had your American versions of these English designs, and we tended to not embellish them as much here in this country, but, you know, understated them a little more. But the Queen Anne at its core was not a flashy kind of style. It didn't have a lot of bells and whistles. You didn't have inlay. There was hardly any carving at first. It was all about form. It was only as the Chippendale period came in, you started to see like pierce splats on chairs, ball and claw, shells on knees, all that kind of stuff. So it was more about form. But the prominent material of the day was still mahogany. It was such a gorgeous wood. So, all right. So once we have that marked, now we've got to decide what faces we want to lay out our legs. You can lay out your shape of your leg on the front two corners. So you have to make it on the corners. So I could do it this way. So I've got the knee is right in the front. And then when I flip to this side, the knee will also be in the front. However, you can also do it on the back. You could set it this way. So this is the back corner here. And then you could flip it and cut it this way. It really doesn't matter because you're going to be sawing from the same face. I mean from the two different corners. But here's the thing. I prefer the inside because I like to see the offset from the mortises. I'd rather have that precise because in case you're cutting from the front, you don't always see what's going on in the back. So I'm going to lay it out right here. We're just going to hold it flush, the template in the back and on the foot. And here we go with our pen. I like using the pen because you can really see it well when you're bandsawing, and it all gets taken off anyway. Then we come up to the block shape here, and then down the front. Now this is the inside, so we're going to flip this way off the back corner and do the same thing. Here's our block, the knee, then down the long straightaway here. And then out to the foot. Same thing. Okay. Now the foot, you can see this is, I allow like an inch for that bottom foot turning. So we're going to just come up an inch right there. See that little hook rule? Have you guys seen these? This is a woodpecker's thing. They sent me some. It's not, again, I have no sponsors. I just thought, I find that's pretty handy to have those things. Now I'm just going to mark a couple faces here so it can show it up, so it shows up well when I start spinning the lathe, because that's where I'm going to bring it round. Okay. Now I have to mark the center here. So remember, I'm going to offset mine toward the front. So I want to have, and that cylinder for the foot is 2.5 inch diameter. So I'm going to have 1.25 inches to the center. So I like using a marking gauge. This is set up already, so let's see. Could adjust it a tiny bit. I just like to set the marking gauge right to whatever it is, and I'm going to register off the front two faces. Right there. Right there. And that's my center for my foot. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that with an awl. So you can see it. So this will help get the live center started. All right, now at the top, I want to just be in the center. And so I'll go ahead and register this to 1 3/8 ish. It doesn't matter if I hit it exactly because I'll end up with a little square in the middle that'll show me the center. So just marking gauge right off like that. And there's our little square. And find that center with our awl. And now this is going to be my spur drive end. So I'm going to take the spur bit from the lathe and set this down on the floor. And we're going to drive that spur bit in to get it started. If I can hang on to it, let me do a better job marking this in the center. There we go. And just get that right in there and drive it. You get a really good purchase in there. And I like to notch one of the flanges on the spur bit so it's got a little bit of a notch in it, and you can always reset it. Because these may or may not be perfectly symmetrical, and you can always get it right back where you had it. All right, so...
Show that. That was a good trick. Maybe other people know, but...
What's that?
Your notch.
That notch on the spur bit, it always identifies exactly how to reset it. I look for that little bridge and just set it right back in. If you're... All right, so there we go. We've got that all set up. And we're ready to go. So let's head over to the lathe and we'll spin this out.
Any questions while we head over there, guys?
Okay, I'm going to bring my rule. And that's it. Okay, let's head over here. Oh, I got to bring the spur bit. Go ahead, I'll meet you there.
Okay. I might need some wiring help.
Oh, yeah, hold on.
Thank you.
All right, you're free to go over.
Okey-doke.
Okay.
No questions, so.
They might be at the symphony. All right, I'm going to just hit that in.
With this...
What?
With this exciting presentation, how can it possibly be?
Yeah. All right, so now I'm going to set this in, get that right in the registered spot, and I got to slide my tailstock down and bring that up a little bit. And lock her in. Okay, now we'll bring this up to the toe. Okay, so let that seat in nicely. And then I like to just slightly back it off so I don't have all that pressure on the bearings. Okay, there you go. Let me get my pencil, I forgot. Okay, so here we're going to turn this foot. So we've got the cylinder, the main cylinder is 2.5, and then it steps down to 1 7/8 for that second. And then that cove is just more or less an eyeball. I mean, you could measure it. I don't know, it's about, I eyeballed that when I made those lines. So you just want a little smaller foot under there. So we're going to go ahead and just turn the cylinder to 2.5, and then we'll mark up. It's a good strong 3/8 from the bottom. Turn that down to our 1 7/8, and then give our round over and cove cut. Okay. Now this is a little intimidating first because it's going to be offset, so it's going to wobble. And I just moved this lathe over here so I can feel it's going to probably wobble a little bit. I don't have it quite set up here, but hey, that's the adventure. We're gonna, as long as it stays in there, I'm okay. So I'm gonna just bring on my tool rest, and I like setting the height just a little over center, and then let's give it a kind of spin. Okay, right there it's hitting. It's going to hit in the heel, so you want to make sure you're not hitting before you turn her on. There you go. All right, so we're going to go ahead and first I want to register like a cut. I'm going to come in on that line with the skew and then turn it down to the cylinder. Let's bring in the tools. It's not a big job here, but I need some sandpaper. Let me grab that over here. So I want to sand up that foot. But here we go. Got my 2.5 cylinder ready to go. All right. Here we go. Haven't used this for a little while. I'm going to turn it down. Oh, I can feel the vibration. You feel it? You have your hand on it though. I'm just going to go about 1,400 RPMs. See how that feels. Just cut right in there. And just go in with a gouge. Sorry, this is going right at the camera lady.
I'm ready.
All right. I'll go in with a parting tool now. If we rest it on top, you can hear it's still not round. I'm going to get it out here first. Just about round right there. Let's check it. Okay, just touching right there. So let's see. Yeah, we're just round. That's good. Let's feel the foot. Okay, that's good. We got it right there. Actually, let me just gonna part this off. Okay, so there's our initial cylinder. Now we're gonna come up. I'm just gonna eyeball this. We're gonna come up about 3/8, a strong 3/8. And go in our 1 7/8. Okay. All right, now we're going to round over. And let's see, I'll take this is challenging because you've got that big corner right there. You can't really come in at the normal angle you'd like to. So you have to really make sure you're up here and you're gonna just roll your gouge. Get it to roll right down into that. Finish it right down the bottom. Now the rest, I just get with a skew, and I have to do a little bit of a scraping cut, not down here, but up at the top. I'm gonna finish this. Just come in. Just nice finishing cut there. So here I'm gonna just scrape to form that bead. Okay, now sand it up. I like to get more of a shearing cut at the bottom here because I don't. You got to be careful when you're sanding this that you don't clip your fingers. Oh, I still got to do that little cove at the bottom. Let's just come in and get the cove down here. Just use a gouge and just sweep it. There we go. I'm not going to go crazy with the sanding, so we can move on as I go crazy with the sanding. Okay, I could do more there, but let's just go up one further grit. All right, there you have it. We've got our foot turned, and it's justified toward the front. You can see how it's just inside the front edge. So there you have it. It's toward the front toe, offset. And now we just have to get the rest of the leg out, and we'll have it. All right, so let's head back to the bench. And now all we have to do is bandsaw this baby out. Now, we're going to saw the block out by setting the fence on the lathe. I'm sorry, on the bandsaw. So we're going to set the fence to cut just to this side of the blade. Now, we're going to have the fence set up on the right side to cut that. And then when we go to cut this side, we're not going to be able to see that line. So we're going to actually just rotate this way and cut the other side of the block from this face. It's on the back. So we're going to transfer that line just to know where to stop. So let's just carry that over. It's right at this point. I don't want to go beyond this point right here. So I'm just going to put my pen right there. Okay, so I'm going to come down. I'm going to stop right at that line. It'll make more sense when I cut it if you're not following that yet.
So cutting before bandsawing, mortising before the bandsaw, is that?
Yeah, we would mortise normally before, but I'm not mortising this. I just want to get out the leg. But yeah, I would do my mortising now, and then I won't have to shim everything up, and you get a nice true reference. Square reference, so your mortiser comes down and makes a beautiful job. And then you go ahead and cut it. So, all right, so we're gonna set up our fence. We'll use the little bandsaw here because it's got the 3/8 blade with 6 teeth per inch. So it's going to, and that's a new blade. It's got a little bit of a bump in it, but it works fine. I'm gonna bring this over and set it up to the size of the block here. That looks about right. We'll give it a little test and move it if we need to, okay? So once I make this block cut, I'm going to rotate and make it this way. So this is actually going on this line. I always get like disoriented when I do this because I'm like, wait a second, am I going to cut into the wrong part? That would be embarrassing to do right now too, but I could do it.
Rather human, probably. I
could do it. All right, so we're going to just stay right here and go in, rotate, and then after that, I'm going to go ahead and start sawing out the profile in one dimension. So then we're going to stop, and I'm actually going to tape those blocks back on so that we can cut the other side. All right? Whoops. can see my pen didn't complete the line right here, on the knee right here. Can't have that. There we go. If I had sanded my pattern better. Oh, look, it did it again. That's what I got to do, is sand my template. It's the fuzziness. Shoddy template work there. Okay, here we go. Get it right on there. Beautiful. All right, we're ready to go. Saw the block, saw the profile. Here we go. All right, let's go to the bench for a minute. We've got to tape these back on. Now sometimes some people like to stop and leave a bridge of wood and saw from both directions. I just think that cutting all the way through and taping it back on is about the same. And plus I like the fact that I can continue that saw cut and I don't have to blend from coming two directions, because I end up with a smoother, easier to clean up surface by taping it back on. But if you prefer to leave the bridge, by all means, that's a very viable other method. So here we've got the cutoffs. So up here, this has to be replaced here because we sawed off our lines. You know, this piece coming off the inside had our lines with it, so we're going to just tape this right back on. And let's get some masking tape. I'm going to do this piece as a project in the near future. Some of you guys know that we do projects and we have full-size drawings and video series accompanying quite a, what, 20 or more, right? No?
Yeah, about 20.
And so I love this table. I think it should be one. We'll go ahead and do that.
Online courses.
Yeah. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and replace this little guy at the bottom.
We just finished one up this morning, actually, on the
Yeah, the
candle stand.
the shaker candle stand. I love that project. It's so, you know, it's not overwhelming, but it's got a lot of class and style to it, and it makes an amazing gift, especially this time of year. Okay, so we get that on there. And now we have to continue our lines. I'm going to tape those other blocks on the other side in a minute just to give us support. But where I lost my lines a little bit here, I'm going to put them back. There you go. And down the front. I'm sorry I missed the auction this morning. I bet you guys had some humdinger deals. Was John Siegel the auctioneer again? He drives a hard bargain, that guy.
All right. Good job.
Was he the auctioneer? Did anyone say?
Maybe I'll get an answer. Let's
Okay.
see.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stick this on. I wonder what I missed. Well, there's some amazing objects. Usually it's just people auctioning off the stuff that they bought at the last auction. And then they're going to hang on to it till the next auction.
Not everybody lives that way, honey.
Oh, you're right.
Oh,
Not everybody
the auction is after the demo,
It's after.
and John is the auctioneer.
Awesome. I thought you guys were together earlier this morning. All right, so here we go.
You're going to want to run over there, aren't you?
Yeah. I think I have enough auction material in my attic. But
You aren't going to find any disagreement with me on that one.
no, that's true. All right, so let's just finish this
All
up.
very valuable, of course. And Claude says you can make it here in time. Quiet, Claude. Shh.
I want to be a phone bidder, the mysterious phone bidder. Okay, so there we go. Now we're all ready to go ahead and saw the other profile. So let's head back to the bandsaw.
The library is full.
Okay, we're going to come this way. We'll get the knee first.
I'm going to go back to this view because I think it's
You like it
kinda
better?
cool. Well, just different.
Okay. forgot to turn on the dust wiper. All right, back to the bench. Okay, so now we get to take off the pieces and the leg starts to emerge. The three-dimensional nature of it, at least. There we go. So there, we've almost got a leg. But we got some cleanup to do. So we've got these bandsawn surfaces, and we're going to hang on to that block. So now we're going to clean up these surfaces, and to do that, I like to you got to have a good clamping system. You know, in this article, Phil Lowe, he's holding it vertically like this and working on the ankle. Pretty nice. Another way you can do is horizontally, which I prefer myself, and I know he's holding both ways. And I put a spacer block about an inch thick into my vise like that, and then I bring in one of these I-beam clamps. You can use other types of clamps as well. And I just level it kind of, and bring up my vise and get a good bite on it.
Tom, we have a question.
Okay.
Does the direction of the cut at the bandsaw matter?
Not really, no. It's just whatever you're comfortable with, which angle to come in on it. And so where it was real key was down here where I was exiting the cut. I didn't want to cut into my turned foot. So I was trying to exit just slightly above it. And then in the back, I didn't want to cut into it. And I'm right just above it. So that's going to get blended into the foot. And that's the main thing there. But the rest of it, I'm just trying to flow and keep a nice, you can come in either direction. Excuse me. All right, so now we're going to clean it up, and I'll just set it in here and bring up the clamp and snug it up. You don't want to overdo this. I mean, if you kept going, you could crack it, I'm sure. But this is doesn't have as strong a curve as some of the others. All right, so we're going to need a spoke shave, couple Nicholson rasps, a small file, and a card scraper in a little bit. So, oh, and you also need a draw knife. Well, that's optional, but I like using it. But we'll get to that in a minute. So, here, now we're going to start by just smoothing this surface. I'm going to hold the spoke shave, kind of skewing it. It has a kind of planing effect. This cherry has some good color. Pretty deep red here. So I'm feeling for any kind of waviness. I'm trying to take out any kind of waves that might have been, you know, that are there from the bandsaw, from my little wavering on the bandsaw. But that fared nicely. You know, the nicer job you do on the bandsaw, the less time you have to spend here. Now, you can come back this way and get the knee. And then just want to blend it this way. So we've got a grain is running out this way and then this way. So you're just coming at it from the favorable direction. So this does matter which direction you go in, because it'll tear up the grain. It'll be tough going for you as well. But there, you have a nice, trying to get rid of chatter as well. Okay, that looks pretty smooth right down the middle. Then we would rotate. I'll try to do this a little more efficiently here. That feels pretty good. All right. The knee.
Tom, would you say, this is a question from me, would you say that Mr. Moore did predominantly?
I'm sorry, you don't get any questions. What? Go ahead.
I'm not sure anybody else is interested in this, but did he do predominantly Queen Anne style furniture, would you say, or was it?
Oh, that's hard to say. It was both Queen Anne and Chippendale. I feel like more Chippendale because there was more carving, you know, people liked the shells and things like that, but when I was there, it was probably more Chippendale. We did a number of Chippendale chairs, and even some Duncan Fife style. But yeah, we did have a share of Queen Anne as well. I love the Queen Anne because it's so strong in the aspect of form, which is really the bedrock of any good design. You start with a pleasing form overall, and then the various elements combine. It's almost like, I don't know if I can compare it to music, but it's overall, it should look pleasing and balanced from a distance. And the thing about Queen Anne is because there's no ornamental design on it, you can kind of squint your eyes, and when you see the silhouette of it, it's actually the same as when your eyes are open, because you're just seeing all form. Whereas, so you really, when you're reducing things to just form, you have to be better because there's not as much flash and to distract people. Similar actually to the shaker style. Very clean, light, minimalist lines with shaker. You don't think of the Queen Anne as minimalist, but because of all the curved lines, but as far as it goes with ornamentation and decorative elements, it definitely is.
Are you putting a crown on, rounding it?
No, I'm not rounding. Right now I'm just establishing flat. I'm trying to get this fared nice and flowing in this way, especially up the center line, because the rest is going to get slightly rounded here in a minute. So now I'm going to just trying to blend the four surfaces smoothly. And one way you can tell how well you've done is if you sight the center line. If it's really wavering, then you still have work to do. It should look pretty near straight as you go down the center line. Let me see it this way. So you see that? It's pretty near straight. So, but if it's going like that, then feel for any bumpiness. So this has a nice flow to it. I'm done with that step. Now we're ready. Oh, sorry, I gotta finish a little bit more. I've got to just shape down here. I want to blend out to that line. So here, it's pretty tricky to do with a rounded sole spokeshave. So this is where the Nicholson rasps will really shine. So we're going to use we're going to go with a coarse Nicholson rasp first, the number 49 or 49. If you're from my old neighborhood. We're going to go right in here, and what I'm trying to do is get this down to that top of that line. It's like there's a line on the top of that turn section. Oops. I left more meat on this than I intended to, but better more than not enough. You don't want to cut into the cylinder. You know, you can always put this back on the lathe after and spin that and clean up that foot if you need to. If you do bruise it or cut it in some way. But when you put it back on, it's going to be whipping a little differently, but start with the slow speed and you shouldn't go unconscious when it comes off. You should maintain consciousness long enough to call your wife or 911. Just kidding. All right, now we're going to rotate this way. Again, with the 40, the 49.
What are you thinking about grain direction when you're doing that?
Well, yeah, the grain is going, really, I'm on end grain here, so this is pretty tricky. So I'm coming from downward. You don't want to go up this way. I'm just working, and I'm kind of rolling. This is end grain, so it's tough. But that's why I have the more coarse. Once I get close, I'll go out to the other one. So I want to feel that fluid kind of curvature right into the foot. Okay, that's nice. And then I could do the same up here behind the knee. Down here it's blended nicely. I could go up in here a little bit. I'm not going to bother with that right at the moment because that's secondary to down what's going here. Now at this point, once I've got all my surfaces nicely fared and trued up and blending out to where I want, now I'm ready to mark out for the rounding my legs. So I want to get it more to a rounded shape like that. Excuse me. So I'm going to get my pencil and I'm going to start right here at the ankle. That's about the center. Just eyeball it. Then up here, right at the apex of this curve. So right where it's the highest point, I'll make a little tick mark. And I want to bring this line, sweep, and come right out at this point. That's the apex of the roundover down here, okay? And then up here, I'll just stop right for now, right at the ankle. I'll do the same thing over here. Get that apex. And then the ankle, center, sweep, and get right into that. And this doesn't have to be perfect, you're just kind of eyeballing, but that's the high line of the roundover, okay? So this corner has to come down, but you don't want to go any lower than that line in that location. Okay, then on the back, same thing. The ankle gets almost round to finish. Again, the apex is right about there. Same over here. And then right here, ankle, round, right into that apex. We'll do the same thing on this side. Okay, there we go. So that's our key point at the foot. Now at the top, I made a little diagram. I'm not going to make this entirely round, but I have this little roundover point. That's where the end of the roundover is going to be. So about that distance. Now I just use my finger as a stop here. So I set up my built-in what do you call
finger
it? Marking
pad.
gauge. Yeah, finger pad. And I just come over to my workpiece. I'm going to come right here and sweep down. And now I'm going to try to hit that middle line. So I'm kind of extending it a little bit as I get down in there. Then come up here. And then I want it to, I'm looking at my drawing. I want it to melt away to nothing up here. So I'm kind of turning my hand as I get up here. And then so that's your guideline. You're going to do the mirror of that on the other side. So we want to go right about here. And you can measure it if you're feeling unsure about it, but once you get doing this a little bit, you have to do a lot of legs. You get kind of used to it, and you realize how you don't need your square anymore, your marking gauge, until you look at it and you go, wow, that's horrible. All right. Then I'm going to come up the middle. There. Okay, that's the front. This back corner is similar in that about the same distance here. And here you're going to just have it die out right about midway on the curve there. This is a hard one to sweep. And then come on down. So this marking takes a few minutes, but it makes the results so much nicer. So again, you're going to connect up there and then come on down. Okay. All right, so once you've done that all around, I would do that same thing in the back. Same, mirror this over here. Then you want to mark the halfway point to make it easier to clean up. So you go back to all of those lines and you're just going to split the difference. And this you can do kind of quickly because this is a guideline for removing material. To quickly bring this curve, to bring this in, I'm just going to eyeball that center. Come on down. And then sweep out to the foot here. Like that, okay? You do the same back here. Split that difference. Right on out. To the foot. Okay, so I'd go all around and do that. Takes a few minutes. I'm going to switch out to my other leg. This is exactly the same. I already made all the lines, so we can move along here quickly. Now, what you want to do here is you want to remove that first to that first line. So that's going to create a facet. And that's a lot of material to remove. So this is where the draw knife comes in handy. Man, I should have practiced with this first. I haven't used it in a while. But this is kind of elbows to your body. Your bevel is on the bottom side. That is actually kind of your guide. You can roll into the bevel, and that's going to deepen your cut. So being high on it, you can just skin it. But if you dive it in, you can start to take a little more. Skew the cut, and you'll take even more. But this is great for roughing out. I always feel like a little primitive when I grab this, like some kind of fine Queen Anne leg, but it actually is amazing how you can get some pretty good control with it. And it's so efficient in removing material. So now right here, the grain is switching. So I want to stop there. You can actually do some in here. This is pretty steep grain. And just rolling it in here. I don't have to worry about anything because I already made my guidelines. So I'm just going down till I get those lines to meet. And I don't have to do it all with this draw knife, but get as much as we can without wrecking it. And then come back this way. So the draw knife is super helpful when you're taking big pieces of material off, when you get in those situations. Sometimes on live edge tables, it's fun to use to change the shape of the edge without, doing a ton of sanding. It's really useful. Okay, you can find them at like flea markets and whatnot. So there, I'm down to the line pretty close, and up here, just a little more. But before
Maybe
I go
someone will auction one off today.
What's that?
Maybe someone's auctioning one off today.
Yeah, right. Now I'm going to finish it with the spoke shave because this is a cleaner surface. But I have very little to do because of how much the draw knife did. And I'm really nice and true already. This I'm going to have to get with the rasp. Up here, back again. Just kind of into the knee here. That's good. And we're going to rotate, get the corner in a similar fashion. You got to be careful about grain direction here because sometimes it'll get weird on you, like right there. So this corner is kind of tricky. It's almost like I'm tearing no matter which way I go. Let's see what it's like down here. It's a little more friendly. So I'm just going down to those guidelines. Just sweeping, see that? It just sort of rolls right in on that bevel. Okay, let's see if we can get a little more here. That's end grain there. Just, if you don't take too much, it can do it. It's amazing. Okay, up here, it's a little risky to do more right there. So I'll get as good as I can and then bring in the spoke shave. That's just some wavy grain right there. It's like curly figure. notice that. Okay, that feels good. All right, let's hit the back quick here. Gotta be careful you don't hit the foot or the clamp. I'm gonna come back this way. Okay, and again. Again, just feel that little bump right there. Looking for fluidity. Here you can also get it with a chisel. You know, because you're going with the grain here rather than rasping this off, and it gets a little tricky to use the spoke shave right here. Okay, to get close, we'll finish that with the rasp. Get this heel. That's nice. That gives you that key little sweep forward from the profile right down to the top of the rim. We don't have it yet. We'd have to finish that with a rasp. So now this facet is going to finish right down to the rim of this circle. Sometimes I'll put a piece of tape on there to protect it, like I just touched it. But I did that so you would see what goes wrong. I never actually do that in practice.
I think we're on to you by now, hon.
That's a great thing about teaching. You never make a mistake. Okay, that feels pretty fluid, pretty nice. All right, so once you're there, that's good. Let's see, we're pretty close. Wonder if we should just work on this side. Let's just work on this side. We'll get it the shape, and you'll know it's the same thing over there. So once you've got them all kind of faceted like that, this one I want to blend the same way. I just got to blend this facet so it comes right into the top of the rim of that turned element. So again, we'll get the 49. Oops. I'm always afraid I'm going to break this, but I've actually never broken one. So I don't know what I'm afraid of. Be interesting to do a pressure test. See how much weight one of these could stand. Okay, so once we've got all the facets like this, what we've achieved is down in the ankle, if you look at it, it should be nearly octagonal. Okay, it should be almost octagonal, and I forgot to do this front piece. This where it comes up into the front. This also should blend right out to the top rim. This is like dead end grain, so these random teeth rasps are amazing right here. Okay, so once we have that, now you can kind of free form it. Rather than making more lines, you're going to just take your spoke shave, and now I'm going to ride down these facets. So that ridge of that facet, I'm going to just take that right down. I'm going to try to go right on it until it's about halfway, and then I'm going to start blending to the left and to the right to that center line. I forgot to mention that one thing. Before you do that, you want to put a center line. You're going to establish your center line down the middle, which is your new kind of apex down the middle, okay? So this is your high point right here. You do that on all the new facets that you've just made. So right here, this one comes right out to the edge. You're going to be right in the middle of it approximately, because that's your low point, or the high point of the circle. Think of it that way. But this way, you're just going to round over. You don't want to take, using this as a guideline, so it's not like it has to be absolute precision. But here, let's just stop there and go ahead and taking that facet off. Now we're going to roll to the right, roll to the left, just about to that pencil line there. Now we'll do the same to this section. Get the other side. I love using the spoke shave. It's such like a sculptural tool that you're feeling it shape the wood, and it is literally like one of those extensions of your hand. Okay, so down here it gets pretty tricky. You could use a rounded spoke shave for these facets. Come in this way. But it gets pretty tough on the end grain right there, so you'll finish it with hand tools. Let me just get this. I want to get the foot just looking a little nice. If you got any questions, get them ready, because I'll have time in a couple minutes. Okay.
Can you talk about any questions related to this?
Yeah, whatever. I guess whatever. So now I'm blending, and I'm just looking to create a roundedness into the foot. So I'm very close to round here. So I'm creating a roundedness on the foot itself and blending out to the top edge of that foot. It's right there. It's telling you right where you want to end. But right now I've got the coarse rasp, so I'm not trying to get too close to it exactly, but let's just try to feel that getting round there.
In a production shop, Tom, was there a standard time to complete a leg?
Oh, I don't know what it was like back in the 18th century, but with Pug, it wasn't a production shop. But in a production shop, I don't think they would do them this way. They would do them with some type of automatic lathe, you know. You've seen those Queen Anne legs that get spun on machines. They just look horrible. I mean, if you compare them to the 18th century style, they're just gross. But that's my own personal opinion, I guess. From seeing the real ones. So we start to get like this trumpeting of the front here. Let's come around this side. We'll just hit this facet down. Whoops, I forgot to make that center line again. It's right at the apex here. And down the middle here.
How long did it take you guys to make them in Pug Shop?
I can't remember. Just try to multiply this. What you do is you'll take like 4 legs and you take each one to each sequence. So, you know, you'd bandsaw them all, then you'd come on and you'd smooth all the surfaces, then you'd come in and you'd mark them all, you start faceting all the draw knifing leg to leg. So what you're doing is you're going through, you're getting speed in the multiplied pieces, and you're getting, really, you gain a lot of skills that way, like whatever you're doing, because you're repeating the exercise so much. You start to get a lot of muscle memory and control of whatever aspect of the tool you're using. And so I would recommend to do that anytime you have work. Just carry each piece along to the same point, and then, you know, you just go by steps, step by step. And then down here, I'm just going to get this looking roughly like a leg so we can talk for a second about the other contemporary leg. So we would clean this up at the end with a file like this. So this helps to blend it nicely. And it's just almost like sandpaper. So you're going from the rasp to the file and then to the fine side of the file. And because you're down here on end grain, that would take forever to sand out all the way. So you definitely want to card scrape that before you try sanding. So you're going to come in with a sharp scraper. Let's see.
Would you typically make an extra leg?
Yeah, like usually you might make a pattern leg to be sure you like it, and that'll become your leg. Like that one I showed you initially, that's one that I have hanging on the wall, and it's kind of like the master pattern that I look at for every one to try to get everyone to approximate that pattern. So it's nice to have the extra pattern leg if you're gonna make another one. Plus you get them hanging on your wall, and they're right there for inspiration. So now I can take off my guidelines as I come in here, because I'm card scraping. I'm seeing it start to get nicer looking. Here's that curly area. Just keep rolling the card scraper. And then at the end, you could take your palm sander. I would start with like 150 and just get in here. All right, of course you could do more than that, but now you're seeing how the foot gets refined by those sweeps coming in. And then look at on the other side, we still have our guidelines to go. So this is the progression that you're going to take it to create a Queen Anne leg. Let's hold it up next to our other one. See if we notice even the increased sweep. I got to get them both equally on the table. Okay, let's see where they stand. Yeah. I guess, can you see this one? It does sweep slightly more forward, so it has a little more elegance. I think I'm going to like it more when I finish it out, but got a little more work to do on that one. But now, I won't get into it today, but the way these legs transition into the rail is interesting because you need a knee block in here to make that smooth transition. We talked about that a little bit on the Shop Night Live, about that smaller Queen Anne leg, where I showed using this as the demo. We showed how this style apron that goes all the way down to that turn in the leg gets the transition or knuckle piece. It's almost like a glue block. It gets fitted in on top of the apron and in that little inside corner. So it finishes out in there. And then the other style sits under the rail. So the rail will only come down to the square, to the block, and then the glue block goes in underneath like this. So this is a really strengthening situation as well, and you get a narrower rail here. You don't get that nice kind of lyrical curvature of the apron there. But if you look back on our table that we started with, we've got that first style knuckle I showed you. This is a little filler piece which goes on top of the apron, which comes right down in here. And that acts as almost like a glue block as well, but it gives a completion to the termination of the leg, the way it rolls around, and that gets rounded. And this piece is taken from this sawn out section here. So you always save these things, and you're going to cut it, and you're going to keep it marked and oriented, so when you saw that block out, it's going to go right in like that. So it stays oriented to that piece. The one on the side is going to go over here, because you'll have enough for both. And by doing that, I don't know if you can see up close here, but the grain on the knuckle follows exactly because it's from the same leg. And that's, if you got this turned around, you might have the grain running differently. But in that way, you'll get a nice match there. And then over here, you can see on our original chair, we have the kind of glue block that sits underneath. And it's a big block. And it really reinforces that chair rail, that front rail. And the last thing I want to show you was the way this principle of curvature applies to contemporary pieces. So let me move this. I've got this writing desk some of you have seen that we made recently here. Actually, it was a course. But check this out. This is very contemporary looking. It's got wild, like big leaf maple. Can you see it? Is it glaring?
It's okay.
Okay. But look at the leg. It's got that similar shape. However, it's the opposite. Instead of bulging out and then backing out, it's going in and then out. So it has a little wider stance at the foot. But the interesting thing about it is the final pattern is a very subtle cabriole shape. So it's got that shape going on right there. And here's the mortises. And those got marked and cut first. Then the cabriole is laid out, or that. Also, you could think of it as a soft French leg. And then it's sawn out and refined and pillowed. So much easier than turning the foot and doing all that blending and that having that exaggerated cabriole. But this is precisely the same method. So we go cutting our mortises first, setting our pattern on there, sawing out, taping it back, sawing out the other profile, and ending up with a leg with some real dimension to it. So quite different. Instead of rounding the leg, it's got a pillowing effect to give it a softened look. So you're taking these kind of older traditional ideas and applying them to a contemporary piece. And all of that goes into kind of making your own music out of classical music. And takes us right back to the symphony. All right, everybody, wake up. All right, so are there any questions?
Not that I have.
Okay. All right, everybody. Hey, it was really great hanging out with you guys. Sorry I can't see your faces, but
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I can in my spirit, for sure.
Kind of you to think of asking Tom.
Yeah, I love being part of the guild, you know, and I mention you guys every chance I get on the Shop Night Live and everything else we do. But I look forward to seeing you guys again in person someday. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Have a great day, everybody. Don't spend all your money in the auction.
And happy Thanksgiving coming up.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. See you guys.
Take care.